So I first completed the deep learning specialization over 2 years ago, and it was my first sort of real introduction and how I got started learning about deep learning. And in this video, I want to do a comprehensive review and share my thoughts of this specialization. Before we get into it, one thing I just want to say that I found pretty amazing is that they recently updated their coding assignments to use later versions of some libraries, and they also added some additional content to the course. And I have to say that I really like this aspect of continuously updating and improving their courses. And I hope that we see more courses, generally, not only on deeplearning.ai, but on Coursera and other platforms in general, do this, because it's a major benefit of having things online. Now, the question that I really want to answer in this video is a specialization worth doing? And perhaps, most importantly, what will you actually learn from this specialization? And for that, I'll do a pretty deep or sort of a semi-in-depth look at what you'll learn from each individual course. Then I want to get into a little bit how it's structured when it comes to videos, labs, assignments, quizzes, and that sort of stuff. I want to talk a little bit about the prerequisites. So when is this smart sort of a good course to do in your learning journey, so to speak? And then the prerequisites. So what should you know beforehand? What are the time requirements? Basically, how long does this specialization take to complete? And then lastly, I'll share my summary and my general overall rating of this specialization. All right, so let's get into it. All right, first of all, the deep learning specialization is offered by deeplearning.ai that has a lot of other machine learning courses and specialization as well. And it's the instructor of this specialization is Andrew Ng, who is kind of a, like a legend in the machine learning world and a really amazing instructor. His ability to kind of explain things that are really difficult in a way that's very understandable is very impressive. And I think he's probably one of the best sort of instructors I've ever come across. All right, so the general rating of the specialization is 4.9, which is insanely high, right? This is a very highly rated course. And then it has an impressive over 113,000 ratings. So it's fair to say this is one of the most popular specializations. And spoiler alert, I also like the specializations a lot. And, for reasons we'll get into. One thing I feel is important to mention and talk about first is to have some sort of general expectation of the specialization. So the specialization is mostly focused on building a solid foundation in deep learning. And that is particularly when it comes to theoretical and sort of deep learning concepts. So it does give you a coding practice and these things, but it's primarily focused on building your theoretical and conceptual knowledge. And that is really important because that is the foundation to everything you'll then learn after. So to me, how it was before the deep learning specialization was that I didn't really know anything about deep learning. After I had finished this specialization, I felt like I could tackle and read some deep learning research papers and even implement some of them. I felt ready to start learning about deep learning frameworks and the details of actually getting things to work and coding things, and to start doing my own projects. So that's sort of the expectation I think you can have as well. It won't sort of give you everything when it comes to tackling your own project and coding, and that is perhaps also why I've made some tutorials on PyTorch and TensorFlow to try to bridge that gap and share my experience of more sort of practical and coding related things. But you can't do that if you don't have a solid foundation of deep learning knowledge to build on. And that is where I feel this specialization is really valuable. So in total, it has 5 different courses, and let's just step through and give an image and a view of each of them. So course 1 is neural networks and deep learning, and this is when you'll get sort of an introduction to what is neural networks, what is deep learning, why is deep learning so popular now, what is the reason for it, and then get into the details of how you actually build your own neural network. So this is when you get into loss functions, you understand basically computational graphs and how you make neural networks learn through something called backpropagation. You learn about activation functions and all of these things, which might not make sense to you. I'm realizing that now, but basically you'll learn about neural networks, and at the end of it, you'll also build one completely from scratch in NumPy. And you'll also, I think you'll also, in the first week, you'll also get an introduction to NumPy and all of that stuff. Sort of assuming no previous knowledge really, and you'll build it completely yourself, and you will understand sort of each level of its implementation. That's a really, really good way for me personally to learn. I really like doing things from scratch, and I feel like I get a lot of understanding that way. So if we get into perhaps a little bit more deep on this course, then you can see right here that it's 4 different weeks, and this is a lot of content. I think this first one will probably feel challenging. There's a lot of material, there's a lot of things to go through, but at the end of the day, that's exactly what you want, right? You want it to have a lot of content, things that are challenging, and that'll make you, learn things. So to me, this might be a little bit challenging, but this is also one of the most important courses, I think. Then after that, I really like the names of these courses as well. They really actually describe exactly what you'll do. So in the second course, it's improving deep neural networks. And that's exactly what you'll do. You now know how to build a neural network, and the idea is, all right, how do we make them work better? Or how do we make them work faster, right? How do we actually train them quickly? Because that's actually very challenging. So how you do that is, how do we do hyperparameter tuning of this neural network using methods like regularization to make them work better, generalize better to new types of data, and then how do we use different optimizers, which is a way of updating the weights of the neural network, and basically what are those different optimization methods, and how can we use them to make them train the neural network faster. This one I think is more easier in a way. This is only 3 weeks, so it's 1 week less, but it's also it's not as heavy, right? You have that understanding of neural networks now, and it's more like, how do we get the details right? So this is easier in that way. Then course 3 is one that I've heard Andrew talk a lot about, being very sort of proud of having this course where sort of you actually get sort of practical know-how of how do you go about structuring your own machine learning project. And that's very important, because at the end of the day, right, we want to learn how do we actually build things ourselves. And this has been useful to know, yeah, exactly, like how do we structure our machine learning projects, and common mistakes perhaps where people focus and they don't get sort of the most value out of their time. So let's go into this course a little bit more in detail. So it's only 2 weeks, all right, and it's and it's not very challenging material. It's not very technical. So it's more, as I said, just an understanding of how do you structure these things. And personally, I would have liked it to be more content on this. I think you could easily make this 4 weeks. So like you could make more case studies of actual real sort of applications of deep learning and how you go about building it. So there is one case study right now, but you can make more case studies, make a little bit more in depth. And I would also personally like to have this as the last course, as it's the sort of getting you ready to build your own project. But I think they did this in this way to have sort of you get sort of a chill course for this one, and it's more fun, I would say. Then course 4, you learn about convolutional neural networks, which is, so there are different neural network types, and convolutional neural networks is one commonly used in computer vision. So you'll learn about image classification, and you'll do sort of fun projects. Like there was one where you're building a happy house, so you're gonna classify if a person is happy, and they can only enter the house, like the door will only open if the person is smiling, something like that. And then you'll do other things like object detection, so being able to detect cars using a specific object detection algorithm called YOLO. Then you'll do face recognition, and you'll do some fun projects to actually learn about this. And let's get into the details perhaps of this. So I think this one, this has a lot of material. These are 4 different courses. There's a lot of things to learn. So one thing I missed to mention is that you'll also learn about different convolutional neural architectures. So how has the progress been like, and what are sort of the state of the art in convolutional neural network architectures that are commonly used. And I think you build a solid foundation on this in computer vision. And yeah, that's also perhaps one of the more challenging courses, but you'll learn a lot from this, I think. The last course, the 5th course, is sequence models. So this, we kind of step away from computer vision, and we instead go into the large area, parallel perhaps area of natural language processing, which is more specifically towards text. Not only you don't only do that. Sequence model is more broad, but you'll mostly focus on NLP, which is kind of like machine translation and things like that, working with text, chatbots, and question answering systems, and so on. But you'll also do sort of speech recognition systems. And I think there was some cool ones like using different sequence models called LSTMs, RNN, GRUs, which you'll learn about, and you'll learn about how to build them from scratch. So in the convolutional network one, you also build things from scratch. You kind of do you kind of build the CNN, convolutional network, from scratch as well in this one. But in this one, you'll build some sequence models from scratch also. But then you'll see some interesting applications like using those LSTMs, sequence models, to generate sort of jazz music. And you'll also learn how to use those sequence models to do other things like be able to generate Shakespearean text and generate new names for dinosaurs and stuff like that. So it's kind of funny. They have cool projects to solidify and perhaps make you really understand the sort of the material and the more theoretical concepts. So it's not only theory, right? You actually do stuff as well. But so that is a quick summary. And I think this one, this is the course that they also added this additional week. So they added a 4th week with this new transformer architecture, which has kind of taken over from those previous sequence models with RNNs, GRUs, and LSTMs. So that is, and this is really nice that they do that, which I mentioned in the beginning. And so this is also, in general, a challenging course. Yeah. So I think one thing you'll understand is that all of this is kind of like, there's a lot of things in deep learning, and they go into a lot of areas, but they also give you a sort of a relatively in-depth view at each of those, which I really like. And as I said, it was useful for me to, after this, to go into more specific projects I was interested in, and also be able to read research papers. Let's talk a little bit about the prerequisites, because I think that's a common question. When am I ready to take this course? And so what they mentioned sort of officially is that you should have intermediate Python skills, and you should have basic programming, understanding of loops, if-else statements, and data structures. And I think that you should probably have taken, some type of Python course, so that and perhaps made your, had some projects in Python. You should feel like you're comfortable in Python. So machine learning, deep learning is sort of you need to know some things before you can do that, like some math and programming, and you should definitely have some programming background. I also think they mention a basic grasp of linear algebra and ML. What I would do, so linear algebra is, you'll understand things a lot better. And I think there's people that have completed it without linear algebra and things like that, just having high school math, so no university math courses. But personally, I think you should take some introduction to linear algebra and get some understanding, even if that is like watching 3 Billy 1 Brown's like a linear algebra series, something to make you understand, to have something that gives you at least some foundation in linear algebra and math. I personally took it after having taken calculus and linear algebra, and I felt that was useful for me. So some math is recommended. I do also think you should take the machine learning also by Andrew Ng on Coursera. It's a free course, and I do think you should take that one first before the deep learning specialization. That is nothing that you have to do. That is something that I just recommend. I think you'll have a better sort of general understanding before you do this one, as it's more specific, more specialized. But that is really up to you. But what you need to, at least what I think you need to have, are programming skills in Python, preferably some math background. In best case scenario, you've taken a calculus course and you've taken linear algebra. If that's the case, then that is pretty much perfect. If not, I think you can still take it, but I think maybe you should watch Khan Academy and so on if you get stuck on something, and be ready to complement with other material at some point. So for the time requirements of this, they mention here that it's approximately 5 months to complete. You should never listen to this because they also say here that the suggested pace is 7 hours a week. Let's see how much time that comes out to be. So 5 times 4, 20 times 7, 140. So 140 hours. And so that is, I think, what it took for me. I did it for I did it 1 month. So I did it over the summer, and I spent all my time for that month on the specialization, and I completed it within 1 month. And the reason I did it for 1 month is, if we go to the cost of this, I don't know if they mentioned here, but let's see. Yeah, so anyways, it should say here somewhere. But basically, for the specialization in general, Coursera, it costs $50 a month until you have completed it. So it's kind of, maybe it's encouraging you to do it faster. I'm not really sure. But yeah, I felt that I didn't want to, continue paying for 5 months. It's kind of expensive as a student. So I wanted to complete as quickly as possible, and that's what I would recommend for you too. But 1 to 2 months, if you spend, 140 hours. That's 140 hours is a reasonable estimate. So however long that takes for you to do that, and that, depending on how you structure it. All right, so let's go into specifics of the structure of each week or the course in general. So you have videos, first of all, and then sometimes you have some additional reading material. It's not, the reading material is never kind of required. It's more like if you want additional information, which is nice. Maybe that's reading a research paper at the end, sort of when you've gotten more knowledge, they might refer you to some research paper. But in general, they have videos, and I have to say that I really like the video. I like, as I mentioned, I think Andrew is a phenomenal lecturer or instructor. But what I also like is that each video here goes kind of in depth on things. As you can see, it's kind of a lot of material here. You have 10 minutes, 60 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 10 minutes. There's a lot of things here. Maybe it's like 1.5 to 2 hours per week in video lecture. And that's a lot because you're stopping, you're sort of taking notes and trying to figure it out. So it in that way, I think there's a lot of meat in the actual information and the material. So I really like the video lectures. Also, sometimes you have sort of pop-up questions during the lecture or during the videos rather. I can't find if there's actually one now, but in general, there are some. I think there could be more, like one per video. I think they are really useful.
If the basic technical ideas behind deep learning, behind neural networks, have been around for decades, why are they only just now taking off? In this video, let's go over some of the main drivers behind the rise of deep learning, because I think this will help you better spot the best opportunities within your own organization to apply these to. Over the last few years, a lot of people have asked me, Andrew, why is deep learning suddenly working so well? And when I'm asked that question, this is usually the picture I draw for them. Let's say we plot a figure where on the horizontal axis we plot the amount of data we have for a task. And let's say on the vertical axis we plot the performance of our learning algorithm, such as the accuracy of our spam classifier or our ad click predictor, or the accuracy of our neural net for figuring out the position of other cars for our self-driving car. It turns out if you plot the performance of a traditional learning algorithm, like
but then, so moving on from the videos, you also have a quiz at the end of the week and sort of checking that you've understood the actual information given in the video lectures. So for me, sometimes you feel like you understand something and then you get a question and you're like, wow, I didn't really understand that. So there are often times, you'll go back, you'll rewatch a video to be able to answer a question. And this is graded as well, so you need to pass this. When you've passed the quiz, you move on to the programming assignments. And so you'll kind of get stepped through, you get steps to do in the programming assignment. It varies kind of how much hand holding or how much you have to do on each assignment. But in general, I would say that, yeah, they take about 3 hours to do. So here you have 6 hours of programming assignments. And in contrast to many other specializations that say they take 3 hours, but they take like 30 minutes, this one actually takes 3 hours, at least when I did it. So this is accurate, I would say. Then, so they also have like 2 for this week. Sometimes they might have 1, sometimes they might have 3. And then at the end of the week, there's an optional sort of interview with some of the most popular or perhaps most successful researchers in deep learning, which is, it's very interesting to get in sort of an introduction. What am I saying? A perspective on what they are working on and what they find, sort of their experience and their advice and things like that. So this is something that I really like as well. And I think, if a deep learning AI team watches this, then please continue doing that on other specializations as well. Take people that are at the front of their field in that particular area, and please do these interviews because I found them very valuable. All right, so I think you got a pretty good understanding of how each course is structured. I think you've now also gotten an idea of what is actually in each of the courses and what you'll actually learn, what position you'll be in at the end of taking the specialization. All right, so my overall summary and my thoughts, if this is the only thing you're watching, let me give it to you as compactly as possible. What you will learn from taking this specialization is a strong, solid foundation of many different areas of deep learning, to the point where at the end you'll feel ready to read some research papers, maybe implement some by yourself, and get into doing some simple projects and start your journey in deep learning. That's what it was for me, and I think that what will give you as well. What it will not make you is you will not know how to solve every project. You will lack some programming, actually coding things, so more practical things. And that's perhaps where my YouTube videos and other YouTube videos by other people, like, let me give you some random shout outs. So Abhishek Thakur, Python engineer, and maybe there are more as well. I can't really figure any out right now. But so those are what I think the pros and the cons are. And so another perhaps con is that, well, this should really be a good thing, but there's a lot of things in it. There's a lot of material, and it will be challenging probably for you, but stick with it, and I think you'll feel that you got a lot out of it at the end. This is one of those that I really recommend. I think I rate it 10 out of 10. The only thing, if I am gonna be negative or talk a little bit what I think can be improved, I think the structuring machine learning course that I talked about could be longer, more case studies, and more in depth. I think it can also be after the last course, so that you can go more in depth on things, because you lack some technical knowledge, where this is sort of now at third course. I also think that the programming assignment should be in PyTorch. If we are going to talk about sort of PyTorch versus TensorFlow, I think it's, to me, PyTorch is superior, and I think it's easier for beginners. It's more intuitive, less buggy. And so I think that is one thing that could be improved. That's it for this comprehensive review of the Deep Learning AI specialization. Let me say also that if you are considering taking it, please use one of my links in the description or the comment section. In that way, you'll support the channel, but it will cost no additional to you. And that will allow me to make more of these reviews, more tutorial videos, and just spend more time in general making videos. All right. Thank you guys, and see you in the next video.